Hello folks, hope you're having a good one today. It is time for some hobby nightmares, but before I get into those, if you like what I do, please like the video. It does wonders in the old algorithm and really does help me out, going a long way in putting these bits of content out there for you. So, let's get stuck in with Celeb, C-E-L-E-B. So it's Caleb? Celeb? I don't know. We'll go with Celeb. Hello North. I've been listening and enjoying Hobby Nightmares for quite some time now, and figured it would be time to send in my own. Whilst this is not a 40k story, it still happened in the tabletop miniature gaming community. When I started out playing War Machine, this guy, let's call him Jensen, as per the usual, seemed very welcoming and had a good relationship with store employees and was hosting regular events in and outside of the store. What I didn't know back then was that if you googled narcissist, you would find a picture of him on the first page. Sorry for the armchair psychology there. So this story starts out rather harmless. Jensen, for some reason, had a big hatred for one faction in the game, Signar. Signar? S-Y-G-N-A-R, Signar? I'm going to say Signar. And basically told everyone that playing this faction makes you a bad person. I took it as some kind of inside joke back then, but looking back on it now, I believe he was actually relatively serious. Of course, every other game system other than the ones he played were trash, and the players of those games were just brainless. And now, on to the good stuff. Jensen was very territorial, and if you dared to try and do an event, he would make sure that it wouldn't come to fruition by bad-mouthing it and getting his friends, quote-unquote, behind his back. The only thing that you could do is give demo instructions to interested players, and you'd better hope you'll catch the newer guy before he got a hold of the poor soul for a demo game, since he would bring a super noob stomping list and finish the newbie off in less than an hour without any teaching other than, and I quote, "I had to show you what you can do in this game," unquote. Furthermore, every player better than him was obviously either a sloppy player or an outright cheater, and Jensen had a story for every single one of them where he got cheated or diced in tournament games. Jensen was an average player at best, but he had good tournament results because of several reasons. Number 1, he was very good at psychological warfare. Whilst playing, he would always offer takebacks at certain points. The catch here, he would offer takebacks when his opponent was about to make a good move. If you took it back, you usually were going to do a suboptimal move, and if you went through with your original move, you were always just incredibly lucky if and when it worked. I calculated many of those moves I did after games against Jensen. They usually had a success rate of over 75%. Dude, you've done your homework. You've scouted this guy. Number 2. Jensen would play in his own tournaments and cherry pick his own matchups. Dude, okay. If I go to a tournament and the organizer is playing, I don't play. As simple as that. If I go to any tournament, again, I've only been to the 3 or 4, I've not been to very many, but if I ever do go to a tournament and the actual organizer or an organizer of the tournament is playing in that tournament, I do not play. It's a recipe for disaster, you know? In a 3-round tournament, he would always play against one of the worst players in round 1, and if there was a bye in the tournament, you can easily guess that another bad player would get it and face Jensen in round 2. This meant that Jensen had an easy way onto the final table and always scored well in his tournaments. This became kind of obvious when I went from playing Jensen in every tournament when I started out to never playing him again when I got better in the game. I'd also say he helped in his own tournaments, since nobody really wanted to play him at night aside from some of his close friends. And number 3, in bigger tournaments, Jensen would fix the matchups in a way so that the local good players played each other or other good players early, making their rank worse than they should have had ranked on average. Also, while he never resorted to cheating in his own games, he would make rulings that were completely wrong, but in favour of the player he tended to like more. The worst story was from a local tournament when Jensen forgot to submit a score in the tournament program in the last round and didn't catch it. After it came out, instead of just fixing it and going on with it, no prizes were given, and it came to light pretty quickly, he insulted the players that were playing the game that was missing the result, stating they should have entered the result and that they both should just jump in front of a train, please. Wow. The story concludes with Jensen being in the committee which decided the teams for the World Championship. He put himself on the team, and of course, none of the really good players from our region were there either, but got so blackout drunk the night before the games that he fell onto a railing and had to go to hospital and couldn't play. At least we had a substitute ready. The story he told was that he saved some girl from being assaulted, but that lie never held up since there were way too many witnesses of what actually happened. The fact that he took a place from somebody who would have loved the honour of representing the country and not owning up to any of it finally left him as a bit of an outcast within our local community. I can safely say these years where Jensen was active were certainly crazy, but I don't miss any of them. Cheers, Caleb. Dude, you didn't go into too exhaustive detail there, but I'm telling you now, this is one of the worst people we've read about. So you're there deciding, okay, War Machine isn't as big as 40k. A lot of 40k people will be listening to this going, why does this guy have so much power? Dude, hardly anybody plays War Machine, right? Literally, hardly anybody plays it. So what's going on here is this guy's got an inordinate amount of power in quite a small hobby, which means he can call the shots, do you know what I mean? And he's taken a spot on the World Championships team for his country, basically England, I think, right? When he probably shouldn't even be there, and then just doesn't turn up. There is another level. Oh my god. Anyway, moving on. Bo says, Howdy North, Bo again, writing to you from the Balkans at a cozy 40 degrees Celsius. Sorry for making your last experience with reading my nightmares a nightmare in and of itself. No problem. It's 20 here today and mostly cloudy, but it has been really sunny. It's North talking now. It's been 20 here, but mostly sunny recently. Is it sunny now? No, but it looks like the sun will come out a bit later. So we finally have a bit of sunshine and summer here in the UK, which is very nice. Anyway, part of the blame for it goes to my family, who somehow seem to consist of doctors, lawyers, professors, and the like, leaving me scarred and professionally handicapped throughout my life with prolific use of technical jargon. The long and short of it is that I have a thyroid issue that causes me to struggle with weight. Okay. Making the effort to lose... Dude, I've only... Again, don't be taking this the wrong way, but I've only recently realised how lucky I am to, like, have a male body. Because, like, simply by cutting, lowering down carbs, drinking more, non-sugar drink, and doing exercise, the weight just falls off if you're a dude, man. Unless you've got some sort of other issue, like a thyroid issue. My heart goes out to you, dude. It really does. That's got to be soul-crushing. But yeah, if you're a dude, there's no excuse. Get out there. Get in the gym. You don't even need to do a lot. Just walk uphill for half an hour, 40 minutes. That'll do. You'll be sweating buckets. Cut out most of the carbs from your diet. Drink more water. Done. Right? Anyway. Making the effort to lose weight... Making the effort to lose weight go from what a normal person would experience. Dude, what is with these random words in the middle of sentences? What are you doing? Making the effort to lose weight from what a normal person would experience to basically needing to make it the center focus point of my life to revolve around it. If I wanted to actually effectively lose it and keep the weight off. With that in mind, I've mostly accepted that I will forever be overweight and really don't do what's necessary, as I refuse to live my life that way. There's plenty of people who live like that, and I know that it's doable for professional athletes, dancers, performers, musicians, and the like, who have an entire team to take care of their health and live a planned life. It couldn't be me. After all, I'm just a carpenter. Dude, I don't agree. This seems like cope to me. I don't agree. I know you've got a thyroid problem, but that there is. Listen, I've got mates who've got similar issues, right? And okay. I've got one friend of mine called James, right? And James, I've not been around James since university. Really, really, really nice bloke. He has a serious thyroid issue, which means he puts on weight like there's no tomorrow. And what he did was, again, he basically lived on a diet of red meat. Yes, red meat, right? Cereal bars to replace chocolate, and greens. He used to drink Coke all the time. Like, literally, the sugary Coke all the time. He switched to diet. He didn't like that, so he went to Pepsi Max, right? And just drank that. Zero sugar, and just drank that. The dude lost about 4 stone. That is what? 40 double, around 60, 70 pounds. He lost 60 to 70 pounds. Do you know what I mean? And kept it off too. That's just how he lives now. That's just how he eats. He has to do that to maintain his weight. But he's a ripped, you know, he's not ripped, but he looks good. He's well built. He does all of the cardio that he needs to do. He goes to the gym, right? And again, he's the one who started me on my gym, on my gym, what I do, right? So all he did was, he said, mate, I used to say to him, I don't want to do running, man. I really don't like running. And he said, no, I don't run either. I go to the gym, and I go on an incline, and I walk for 40 to 50 minutes. Uphill. Not a huge incline, just a bit. But at the end of that, I'm drenched in sweat. I then go on the exercise bike for another 10 minutes, and then I go home. That's an hour's work a day. Couple that with drinking lots of fluids and eating well, and he's dropped all of his weight. So I don't agree. I don't agree you're a lost cause. I think this is a myth that a lot of people tell themselves because they're afraid to try. They're afraid to try. And yeah, mate, you've got a thyroid issue. The difference between me and you is I can go on this diet and lose the weight and then go back on a normal diet which is healthy and keep the weight off, whereas you would need to be on this diet all the time. But if that's what you can find joy in it. You can eat the things that you would like. You just can't eat carbs. You need to eat under 100 grams of carbs a day. But it's doable, man. I'm telling you now, it's doable. Don't back yourself. Honestly. Anyway, as I've written in my previous submission for Hobby Nightmares, I found out a kid I gave a Marine to, who got smacked for it by his mum, started his own gaming club. After visiting that club several times now, I have a few stories and some more info to share. We'll call the kid Alex, and Alex was apparently a please use as much of the vaunted British sarcasm as you read for these next few words, was a very, very quiet child. Think Dennis the Menace turned up to 15. Okay, so this kid's running off the walls. Yes, I've just dated myself. And the hobby supposedly mellowed him out. His mother has actually felt pretty bad for what she said to me after all these years. I met her again, and she helps out with the club. She is a Tyranids player. Let's refer to her as Lois. Okay, cool, alright. She's still got a mouth that makes sailors gawk and wonder, and carriage drivers blush. Okay, we're getting into this thing again that you did last time, man. Let's carry on with the story. I saw her stub her toe on the bar, and by golly, the robust verbiage that was on display for a solid 5 minutes made me question just how many ways a person can make allusions to fornication. I also happened to meet Alex's father. Let's call him Peter. He's very round, like me, usually in green jeans and a white t-shirt, and wears round wire framed glasses. Yes, he looks like Peter Griffin. Hell, if he was any more like Peter Griffin, I'm pretty sure Fox would have a good cause for copyright claim against his parents. He helps out with the club too, though apparently he spends more time kit bashing his own army than actually helping, if Lois is to be believed. He plays orcs, and yes, I've had the pleasure of being exposed to his "wah" shouts during a casual game against him. Apparently, I got the whole family hooked on Warhammer after Lois went back to the game store a week or so after the incident, hoping to apologise, and was the one who actually received the aforementioned Red Marine. Coincidentally, Alex plays Blood Angels, however, he is currently off volunteering serving with the army, which is why the parents are helping with the club more, apparently. Oh, and you wondered about why my life was so loud. Okay, let's just say a daughter of a sergeant major, not wife. Okay, cool, again. Cheers from the ass end of Europe, the Balkans, from your friendly neighborhood war criminal, Bo. Okay, dude, it's great, and thanks for the update. The verbiage needs toning down. English is not your first language, and I can tell. What I've done there, I've made that listenable on the fly, or tried to. With English not being your first language, doing all of these really, really funny tangents and using really weird words doesn't really work. Do you know what I mean? I'm really glad it went well, though. And good for her for coming back and, you know, actually apologising to you. Like, that's a big person there. I mean, considering how bad she was last time, that's pretty cool. Right. Iron Biscuit says, "Hi, North. Iron Biscuit here. I love listening to your content. Hobby Nightmares especially kept me going last year when I was in a really crappy job. And I'd always have your stuff running in the background whilst I was at work to keep me grounded and have me a good laugh now and then. I'm happy to submit my own story finally, thanks to the insistence of a few people from your Discord." Okay, cool. "I had a long-time friend, JC, whom I met at uni some 15 years ago. When I first met him, I hadn't really known or had contact with anybody who had autism, specifically Asperger's syndrome. I just assumed he was naturally timid and socially awkward, but I did find it bizarre that an adult man would cry and get upset over losing games. More on that in a bit. I would accept JC as he is, and we would become friends, despite some hiccups along the way in dealing with his autism. I had learned the hard way that I cannot play any sort of competitive/versus game types with him, as he handled losing very badly. In uni, I was very into card games like Magic the Gathering, and I remember playing at a local game store in an event with JC. He unfortunately had a rather bad losing streak, and that was the first time I saw an autistic meltdown. It freaked me out, and I was absolutely not prepared for that. Along with having to calm down an adult 7 years my senior, I was about 17 then, JC was 24. At the behest of his wife, Lena, I was told not to play those kind of games with him to prevent further meltdowns. I found it odd, but I complied, and for years we had no issues. JC and I played many other kinds of board games, video games and RPGs, and I honestly ended up forgetting all about it. Now we come to this year, 2024. I discovered one-page rules, OPR, last year, and I've been enjoying it immensely. I met another guy named Sata from an OPR Facebook group, and together we've been spearheading an OPR scene in my home state. We have a decently sized group and collaborate across many gaming stores within our area. I introduced OPR to JC, as I had always wanted to play Warhammer with him, but it was too expensive for him to afford. We had played beforehand a few small games of Age of Sigmar, but this would be his first war game. At one point, I even managed to find him a fully painted Space Marine army that we would split halfway. All this proved to be a disaster, and I rather regret ever showing him the game. From the get-go, OPR seemed to always get under his skin, and he'd get very irritated over little things. I told him that it's fine. He's barely played war games, and no need to get so upset. That you're still learning. JC is the type of gamer to complain about things being unfair or broken when used against him, but it's perfectly fine whenever he does it. Additionally, I would always try to help him with his list building, but he would never take my advice and then get mad when he'd lose. There were a few times I was vindicated when he actually listened to me and had success with the suggestions I had given him. Okay, before I go any further, right? I'm going to be quite honest here. There's going to be a lot of people in the comments. I have autistic people who watch my videos. There are going to be a lot of people in the comments who call bullshit on this behaviour. There is. There's going to be a lot of autistic dudes who are like, yeah, I'm autistic, badly autistic, and I don't act like this. And I've known dozens of autistic people who don't act like this. There comes a point where you mollycoddle an autistic person so much that it becomes a crutch, and they're allowed to get away with things that other people aren't allowed to get away with, and they don't grow. This seems like a person who does have autism and does have certain issues and maybe doesn't like losing very much, but he's been coddled and coerced and played to his entire life. People have bent over backwards to accommodate him his entire life. That he's not learned, and he never will. This is a broken person now. And autism may have something to do with it, but I think what has more to do with it is people not setting boundaries and saying that's not acceptable. I don't care if you have autism. I don't care what's going on in your head. That behaviour is unacceptable. If you approach an autistic person with a very logical argument, they will go along with what you're saying. I'm telling you. If you say to an autistic person, that behaviour is unacceptable, do you know why? Because nobody will want to play with you anymore in any sort of game that you want to play. You won't get any games, and for you, the hobby dies. You don't get to do the hobby anymore because nobody wants to play with you, and you'll be on your own. Do you understand that? And they will go, yeah, I do actually. Yeah, I guess you're right. That's just how it is. You approach it with logic. Okay? You don't approach it with feelings. Because I know it's going to sound odd, but autistic people don't really understand feelings. You approach it with logic. And you say, listen, logically, this is a suboptimal thing to do. For you. To have this meltdown. It's suboptimal. You shouldn't be doing it. Here's the reason why. You're not going to get any more games. Nobody's going to want to play with you. Mate, I'm your best friend, and I won't want to play with you. And the hobby will stop. So if you like the hobby, this isn't the way to do it. This is somebody who's been mollycoddled their entire life, and people have played up to his autism, and they've let him use it as a kickstand, as a crutch. And he's never going to get better. So enjoy your meltdowns. Because you should have stood up to this. Not just you, everybody around this dude, this JC, should have stood up to him years ago and sorted this out, you know what I mean? Up to that point, though, we hadn't had any meltdowns, but I was afraid it would eventually happen. Yeah, we had many close calls, and it honestly was the most degrading thing to try and calm down a 39-year-old man who's getting butthurt about losing a game of toy soldiers. Yeah. Before I continue, do you know what's really standing out to me? Right? Is that he's not just having meltdowns suddenly. He's calling things unfair and unbroken when they're used against him. Do you know what I mean? This is a child. This is somebody who definitely has autism, but it's also not a very nice person. You can be both. You can be both. You can have mental problems and be a bit of a douche. And that's what this guy is. Don't use it as an excuse. I brought this up to his wife, Lena, but she was no help and tried to blame me that I should know better than to play these kinds of games with JC. Dude, there we go. Exhibit A. Exhibit A. I was furious and told her she's an enabler, putting up with this bad behaviour by constantly appeasing him and letting him have his way by giving him free wins. Mate, Chad behaviour. I made it very clear that I wouldn't put up with this, as this was my hobby time and she needed to come and get her man. We all have precious time for our hobby, and we're not about to spend it babysitting a grown man from having hissy fits. I love it. Dude, that was so cathartic. Despite that, I tried to be accommodating and understanding for my friend. I spent a while researching autism, and even asked around in the advice/rant section of the Discord. As an aside, you weren't kidding about the mental health aspect of your server. You've cultivated a great community there. Cheers, man. Thank you. I had even gotten some insight from other autistic gamers on the server, and I really wanted to try and understand where JC was coming from, but alas, it didn't matter in the end. What especially proved ironic was that we've been running several OPR leagues with our club. The previous one ran back in May to June, and JC had a rough start and lost his first 2 games, and went about his usual complaining, but I told him to shut up and just see what happened from there. He ended up winning the bloody league. I told him that he should take it as a lesson and not get so fed up in future. Things really seemed like they were in a bit of an upswing. Then came last Saturday, July the 20th. We've begun a new league, running from July to August, and JC has been doing good so far, and has even won a few games under his belt and seems to be in good spirits. He was running Eternal Dynasty, OPR's version of Tau, and I was running Eternal Wardens, Stormcast Eternals. It was a shooty list versus a melee list. Yeah, Eternal Wardens are like... here's the thing. In OPR, you can use like fantasy races against sci-fi races. It's all quite well balanced to do that if you want to, I think, from what I've read. I've not done it, so don't quote me, but yeah. It was a shooty list versus a melee list. I had played smart and used positioning to my advantage to get some good charges whilst weathering his gunline fire. But of course, that wasn't enough for JC. He began complaining at every moment, calling me out on rules and if I was appropriately within distance, etc. We each took measurements and I even offered to roll off if it bothers him so much. He declined, but I could already tell he was getting irked. I kept playing. Our friend Sata was there, just shooting the nonsense with us and acting as judge, since he's better at managing rules and has been playing one-page rules more than anybody else in our group. Sata called it fair each and every time something came up. We got to the last round, and I could tell JC was on the verge of tears. He kept complaining, and I was also getting fed up with his nonsense. Sata was trying to de-escalate things between us. In the previous round, my general, pick attached, not my paint job, had a devastating charge and spellcasting that managed to wipe out 2 units, and with her melee, killed a unit on a contested objective, allowing me to secure it. This got JC pissed and said spellcasting was broken. Sata, of course, said it was a fair decision. Before I move on, let me just give people a lovely little picture of that model. I'm trying to make sure. Oh, it's very grainy, dude. Do you want me to show this? I'll show it, but it's very, very, very grainy. That's cool. Very cool. I like it. Alright. Moving on. JC had wanted to forfeit since he was going to lose regardless, but it literally would have come down to a die roll if he managed to kill my army general, giving him an extra victory point, and we'd have to go to another round for a tiebreaker. We decided to play it out and see what happens. JC, with all his remaining activities, fired into my general. She had survived with exactly one wound, securing me the game. It was a very close match down to the wire, but my victory was spoiled by JC being a little bitch. He huffed and groaned loudly as he threw his miniatures in rage, cursing along the way as he stormed out of the store. What I didn't realise at the time was that he'd knocked over my general miniature and had bent the staff out of place. I was also pretty mad, but Sata told me to relax as we began talking, cleaning up the gaming table, and then we goofed around chatting it up with the store manager. We finished our game in the store at around 9:45 and stepped outside at around 10 PM. By then, I was mostly over it, as we stepped outside to find JC and go home. Except he wasn't there. Sata and I are, dude, this is childlike behaviour. This guy's gone missing to be the centre of attention, I'm telling you now, because he's butthurt. Except he wasn't there. Sata and I walked around a bit looking for him, but we couldn't find him. We then decided to split up, and it was a wild goose chase for the next 45 minutes, trying to find a grown man who had erupted into a temper tantrum over losing a game. I was pretty livid throughout all of this, but despite my rage, I wasn't going to just leave him. Yet. What made it worse was that JC only uses Wi-Fi calling on his mobile, and he has no data, so it was impossible to reach him. My mind was racing if I'd have to escalate it to a police and file a missing persons report or something. We didn't find JC until around 10:45 PM. To say I was angry was an understatement. I ripped him a new asshole, saying how much of an idiot he was, and where the hell did he run off to. He barely spoke a word, but he managed to mutter that he went off for a walk to cool down, but because he didn't know the area, he got lost trying to wander back to the store. The rest of the ride home was dead silent as I stewed in my rage. I came home exhausted and drained by all of this, and of course, round 2 began with Lena, JC's wife, when she called me. We went back and forth, but again, she tried to shift the blame onto me, asking me why I didn't forfeit the game when her husband asked. I blew up on her, telling her to not accuse me of stuff, and how I had warned her months ago, when this first reared its ugly head, that she needed to sort her man out. She backed down and apologised, but bemoaned how sad she was about it, and how JC how JC going out was good for him, etc. I truly think I'm JC's only friend, and I get him out of the house and out of her hair, but I'm not dealing with this nonsense anymore, and I'm ready to just burn this bridge to the ground, to be honest. It's been a week now, and I've yet to hear from JC, and I don't expect to. I'm perfectly fine with it ending like this. I don't need to be babysitting a full adult and walking around on eggshells because of him. Anyways, thanks for reading my story, North. I hope it makes somebody laugh, cringe, or helps them if they're facing a similar issue. Life is short, and it's nice to help friends, but we can't stretch ourselves too thin for other people, especially if they don't want it. Thanks, I am Biscuit. Mate, as much as you may think you're being harsh there, I think you're doing the right thing. Honestly, I think you're doing the right thing. I can't see... I don't know, man. I like, autism is a really terrible thing, and it's really, really terrible to go through, and you should have utmost patience for people with autism if they have certain tics. No problem there whatsoever. Again, that's the kind of person I am. You know, I try and be understanding and patient where I can be. But that doesn't... Mental health is not an excuse. Mental issues are not an excuse. It's the same thing as, right, do you know when you go on to... Has this ever happened to you when you're on public transport? And this has happened to me before in the past, right? Where I've been sitting in a chair on a public transport, and it's quite a busy train or bus, right? And an older person will get on. Somebody in their mid to late 60s, they'll get on, and they'll have an absolute attitude on them, like really bad attitude. They'll stride over and look at me and like tut about me not getting up immediately. You know, I'm on my way to getting up for them, because I wasn't quick enough, they tut at me, right? This has happened to me once in the past, and I've sat back down again and gone, do you know what? If you can have that kind of attitude, stand. No problem, you stand. Because being old doesn't mean you get to be an asshole. Sorry. Right? Just no. Now, if this person's like in their 80s and can hardly walk, that's another situation entirely. But if somebody who's just like, you know, a bit older, like in their 60s, and they're huffing and puffing because I'm not getting up quick enough, screw you, right? You're not a very nice person, and you can stand up. That's just how I am, right? Mental health is not an excuse. It's exactly the same. I will give you the utmost patience. I will make sure that you are included. I will make sure that I do what I need to do to make sure you're having a good time. If you've got a mental health problem, or if you've got autism or Asperger's or whatever it is that you've got going on, mate, I will be there for you and I will help you. But if you're an asshole to me more than once and I've warned you, I will not be around you anymore. Because it's not an excuse. I know enough autistic people to know that they are normal people with a few quirks. They're not assholes, and you don't get to use it as an excuse to be one, alright? That's just how it is. That is just how it is. You know? And you can have crippling autism, dude, and you still wouldn't act like an absolute spoilt brat all the time. That is somebody enabling you and allowing you to use your mental health as an excuse for years. So much so that because you're autistic, it becomes ingrained. And you believe that you'll get what you want if you throw your toys out of the stroller. Doesn't work with me, and it doesn't work with normal people. Get a grip. Alright? I love you all a long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll speak to you tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a good one. Bye now.